Hi, Kevin. Okay, here we go with the grand tour of my boiler room. Okay, first of all, in the corner here, I've got the some mini splits down here. The went with the Art Cools, and so that's the distribution unit, and that's going out. One of the units is hanging right here on the wall. There's several more of those coming off of that. There's 4 hooked to that D box right there. So that's separate and aside from the whole Viessmann issue. So that's all squared away and working good. So I just wanted to let you know what that was. Now over here, as you can see, we took this whole ceiling down and we put radiant across this whole floor here. And then it also goes into these other rooms here. See, we did got all the radiant up there in the ceiling. Had to take the ceiling down anyway, so I thought let's just put radiant in it, get it done right. Okay, so getting back to the boiler room. So there's the beast right there, the Viessmann. There's the radiant tubes that are going into the main floor of the house. There's also radiant going into this floor. I'll show you that in a minute. So the radiant's coming in here, and it's going into this manifold here. That's the make on the manifold. Okay, and then over here, this is the circuit that's feeding that manifold. So you see we got this loop here, which is coming in. I'll show you where that comes in a second. But that loops right past this electronic mixing valve, which is tied to this control box, which I guess is part of the whole Viessmann system there. And I see the circulator pump is also going to that same box. So we got our electronic mixing valve, and then that's going up here. We got that circulator, and then it's feeding out into here. The temps have been running pretty stable. I'm trying to keep them below 100. Goes out here, right? And then, if I understand it correctly, it's coming back in here. And then it's the mixing valve either pulls from there or here, if I understand it correctly, to manage the temperature. This thing moves back and forth, controlled by that. Okay, so now this loop here, which is feeding that, is coming back here, and these 2 pipes, as you can see, one of them goes here where it says new radiant, and then the other pipe is just going into this whole kind of bus that goes across here. And okay, let's see what else. As you see, we have the Taco controller here. I have the lid off of it right now. But if I understand it correctly, this is going to our thermostats. And these relays are turning circulator pumps on and off, I guess. I ended up pulling this one out because we were getting really high temps going in here. And Callahan suggested leaving this one on, but making sure that this one didn't run. And so by pulling this relay out, we were able to achieve that. So everything gets run off of here. Now the other thing that we did on here, which I'm not sure I totally understand, is that we're using a heat curve. So here's our boiler temperature. It's always probably a lot higher than it needs to be. But here, if I go to the heating circuit 2, I've got a heating curve. Right now we have it, I think that's pretty low, 0.7. And from what I understand of the heating curve, that somehow it ties into an outside sensor. We have an outdoor sensor that's going through the wall here somewhere, and taking the outside temperature, and then if I understand it correctly, and I'm not sure if we've achieved that, supposedly the heat curve is going to affect the temperature that goes out of this mixing valve, so that the colder it gets outside, the hotter it gets. I'm not sure that we've actually achieved that based on this configuration that we have here. It does seem to work somewhat. I have turned the heating curve up. When I turn the heating curve up, I've seen the temperature go up on the coming out of the mixing valve and going into here. I also noticed that when it gets really cold outside, that the temperature has gone up. So let's see now. There's of course the TurboMax tank, and here, let me give you a little bit of a flow so you can see what he's got piped here, right? So we're coming out the back of the boiler. I'm not sure what that what this is here, but we got hot water coming out the back of the boiler. It comes down, goes into one side of the TurboMax. Then we got this coming out the other side, which is going up, and then we also have this exit over here, which goes up and over to this big circulator, which I think just kind of makes everything go around and around, if I understand it correctly, through this loop. And then we've got this manifold in the back here, or this bus, whatever you call it, that's feeding all of this. That's coming out of the boiler, the TurboMax over here. It's feeding that bus and all of these circulators that are pumping up there. And then I guess all that stuff is returning in here and going in the bottom of the TurboMax. So, okay, so this big loop here is coming out there and coming back in there. So that's kind of like one in and out on the TurboMax. And then I guess we have something else over here where it comes out of the boiler. It's going in the TurboMax here. And we have something out of the TurboMax here, which seems to be going back into the boiler. Hope I'm capturing everything for you that you need to know, but I could take plenty more pictures, not a problem. This here, I believe, is my hot water feet coming out of here, going to the rest of the house. And let's see, what do I have here? Okay, this looks cold water coming in. Yeah, because I've got a well tank, and then everything goes through that filter, and then it comes out of there, goes through the water softener, then it comes here. Okay, so we got our cold water feed, I guess, coming in here. And okay. Hopefully I'm capturing everything. So, as I mentioned, the Viessmann guy suggested that we take this TurboMax out, as you and I were discussing, and replace it with a regular indirect tank for the hot water. And then that would allow us to properly use this Viessmann boiler, as you had described to me, where it's putting out different temperatures based on what zone is predominantly calling at any given time. So the questions I have, Kevin, are, does that sit well with you? Do you agree with that approach? And what about the way this is all piped? Does this need to be redone? Or would I leave these buses here on the wall and just pipe this in? How would that all work? What do you think about this electronic mixing valve and the fact that we have a circulator here and a circulator there? That's how we started out. That's how the Callahan thought we should do it, but then he decided later it was a bad idea. So this one is turned off. and we're just using this one. So yeah, I'd love to get your opinions, Kevin. I'd love to, get your input on it. I'd love to get your ideas. Sounds like you're really up on this, and of course, I want to pay you for your advice and counsel in helping me figure out how we should move forward here. So thank you so much, Kevin. I'll put this up on YouTube, and I'll email you this with all the other photos. I look forward to chatting with you next week.